The Cleveland Cavaliers are back home. We're celebrating a perfect road trip out west. 3 big wins this past week. We'll give out a bunch of awards from the week that was, preview the coming games on the schedule, and we will explore their recent increase in three-point shooting. Hi, and welcome to the Sports Ethos Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. To join the discussion, just use hashtag CavsCast on social media. My name is Zach, and I've been described by some very, very nice people in YouTube comment sections as an NBA nerd, along with other things that I often think about when I'm trying to go to sleep at night. But now, thanks to the fine folks at Sports Ethos, I get to nerd out about my favorite team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, with you. And while I say nerd out, we're just talking hoops backed by stats you've actually heard of. So consider this your safe space to wear your Cavs fandom with pride as we celebrate a week that was in Cavs basketball. To get started, first, we're going to recap the past week. I'm recording this on Saturday, which is ahead of the Hornets matchup on Sunday, so that'll be the first game in next week's podcast. Since our last episode, not our last episode, but our episode on last Monday, where we did the weekly recap, the Cavs have been out west with 3 games in 5 nights, going 3-0, improving their record to 30-4 on the season. And this has them remaining at the top of the Eastern Conference ahead of the Celtics and the Knicks by a healthy margin. At the moment that I'm recording this, they are 4.5 games up on the Celtics and 6.5 games up on the Knicks. They started the week on Monday night, keeping us all up way past our bedtimes. Seriously, 10 p.m. start time for us out on the East time zone. Brutal. But it was worth it. Even though they started to make us wonder, why we were staying up for it. It was an incredibly ugly first half of basketball. But then Donovan Mitchell led the charge in a third quarter, and the Cavs just blew the doors and the roof and whatever other form of holding people inside the building of the Chase Center. They went from up 5 to up 22 in about 5 minutes of game time, and that was it. The Warriors had no answers, and the Cavs went on to win 113-95. A few notables from that box score were Darius Garland with 25 points, 8 assists, 2 steals, and he was a plus 23 in that game. Donovan Mitchell had 23 points, 5 threes, and hit a milestone that's going to come up later in the show. And Dean Wade had a double-double, 10 points, 13 rebounds, which was a career high for him, and they needed it. Every single one of them, because they were struggling in the rebounding department, and he definitely helped that. He also added a couple of block shots and was just solid defensively, as he always is. So then on Tuesday, on the second night of a back-to-back, the Cavs were in LA to face the Lakers. It was the first game for LeBron as a 40-year-old man, the best 40-year-old basketball player in the history of basketball. It was also the first night that the Lakers had Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton available after that D'Angelo Russell trade. The Cavs had absolutely no interest in any of that, getting this win 122-110. It was ultimately the definition of a game of runs. This game was like a slinky dog. Every time the Cavs would get ahead, making a run to stretch out the lead, here comes the but, as the Lakers would just have an answer with their own run and their own sequence to just close that gap right back up, and they just kept doing that for a while. But still, the Cavs held on behind Jarrett Allen's dominance, particularly in the fourth quarter when he scored 13 of his 27 points, going 6 of 6 from the field, and he had his own 11-point run. Then after a couple of nights off, the Cavs were in Dallas to face the Mavericks, who are still without Luka Doncic. If you forgot, he hurt himself on Christmas Day after playing only 16 minutes. And he's still got roughly 3 weeks or so before he's supposed to be reevaluated based off of the original timetable that Shams reported. I haven't seen anything newer than that as of recording this, and since he's one of several guys injured on my fantasy team, I would love to hear some kind of a miraculous recovery, especially since the Cavs just beat them, and we don't have to worry about them for a hot second here. It should have been a chance to play Kyrie Irving as well, and that had me wondering, just anecdotally, how many or what deep NBA stats database would we have to dig through to find the number of times that a team played back-to-back road games against two players from its most recent championship on the opposing team? That can't be a particularly long list, I wouldn't think. But, I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but reality is the Cavs wouldn't be on it, at least not from the Dallas game, because Kyrie sat this game out with an illness. So you would think, no Kyrie, no Luka, no problem. Right? Well, basically, yeah. The Cavs won this game pretty handily. It was 134 to 122. They emptied the bench with 4 minutes to play. It looked like they might win this game by about 30 in the third quarter and just sit the starters way earlier. But to Dallas's credit, they did keep clawing back in this game. Quentin Grimes scored 20 of his 26 in the third quarter, and the Cavs were held scoreless for the last couple of minutes of that third quarter, and it was still a ball game early on in the fourth. However, the Cavs did buckle down. They made some big plays, like the Jarrett Allen block and alley-oop sequence that basically put the game away. That's a play I actually had to create a whole new weekly award for, and I gotta tell you, this was such a fun week of Cavs basketball that I have so many of those silly made-up awards for you, and I really hope that you're enjoying those because they're quickly becoming my favorite part of these Monday episodes, and so I'm gonna just start those right now, and we're gonna go off top with the You Play to Win the Game award for Game of the Week. For this, I'm going with the Lakers win. That game had schedule loss, narrative loss, circumstance loss, just everything stacked against you at one time loss written all over it. It was New Year's Eve in LA, the day after LeBron's birthday, his first game as a 40-year-old, his first game playing since Christmas. He and the Lakers had the rest advantage. They're a much better team at home than they are on the road. They had just made a trade, and their new players were available for the first time. And you've seen, as a Cavs fan, over in previous seasons, when a team can get a boost of energy from having fresh faces in the locker room. The Cavs were coming in on a second night of a back-to-back after a bit of a grind-it-out kind of win against the Warriors. They had the Nuggets before that. They were already 4 to 5 days into this road trip on the other side of the country. It defies all logic that they win this game. And they won this game. Every run the Lakers made, the Cavs held their ground, and they pulled back away. They could easily have mailed this one in, planned their New Year's Eve party in LA, but this team is not built that way. Even on the nights they don't have their best fastball, if you will, they don't short you on effort, and they find a way to get a W, no matter how they have to do that. And that's what contenders do. They find a way to take care of business on a night in and night out basis. And that was illustrated perfectly in that game by the guy I'm going to give this next award. And that is the Cavs really get no love from the rest of the NBA world, with only 2 showing up in the first All-Star Fan Voting Returns Award for Cav of the Week. And I'll be honest, I had a ton of trouble with this one. It was hard to pick just one Cavalier for this week's award. Every member of the Core 4 had their moment to not just shine, but dominate at points across these 3 games that we're talking about. So I'm going with the guy that I think was most consistent, most impactful. And the straw that stirs the drink, or whatever cliche you want to use here, It's Darius Garland. Even if he wasn't shooting it particularly well, he was still able to have a massive impact on the game as a distributor. He made so many nice passes this week. It was another one I had to just create a new award for this show, which we'll get to. But for now, I want to appreciate his play in these 3 games. Here are some numbers that we can nerd out on for a second. Against the Warriors, 25 points, leads the team. 8 assists, leads the team. 0 turnovers for those 8 assists. 2 steals, tied for the most with Karis LeVert. Plus 23 leads the team. 10 of 17 from the floor, and he hit 3 threes, which was second most on the team behind Mitchell. Against the Lakers, 14 points, off shooting night, just shot 5 of 16, but doesn't let that stop him from being highly effective. 14 assists in this game, leads the team, obviously. 3 turnovers, which is a little bit more than usual, but 14 to 3 is a 4.67 assist to turnover ratio, which would be top 5 in the league among players with, actual roles. So you're going to take that every time. 2 steals, leads the team, blocks a shot, and a plus 10, which was second best on the team behind Jarrett Allen. In the finale against the Dallas Mavericks, 16 points, third on the team among 7 Cavs to score in double figures. Only took 12 shots, hit half of them. 2 of those were threes, 1 of 6 Cavs to hit multiple three-pointers. He had 9 assists, once again leading the team, 1 turnover, and he was a plus 24, second on the team behind Evan Mobley. In all 3 of these games, he was an extremely effective and efficient distributor, making huge plays and impacting winning more consistently than anyone else did over that course of time on the roster. When you look at those 3 games combined, 31 assists with just 4 turnovers. That's elite level playmaking. And a combined plus 57 in his 88 minutes. That's just under 30 minutes a game. And they won them by almost 60 points. That's just insane. And that was enough for me to feel like he deserved Cav of the Week. So that's going to lead us into our next award, which is the "You're a Wizard, Harry" isn't a real quote award for Quote of the Week. During a press conference video posted by Anthony Slater, who covers the Warriors for The Athletic, Kenny Atkinson was asked about his time coaching the Warriors, and he said a lot of nice things about how much he learned about coaching great players, how being around Steph and the rest of them and learning from Kerr, how just how valuable that was for him as a coach and kind of like polishing off his coaching ability. But there was one small bit of a quote that stood out to me in particular. When he was asked what was so good for him about coaching under Steve Kerr, he said, "The culture of joy that he preaches over and over." And this is the thing that's jumping off the TV screen at me with this team. They seem so happy. They're so in sync. Like they're just having so much fun. And yes, I know, I mentioned it last week too, and spoiler, you'll probably hear me talk about it again, because I think it's one of the most integral parts of their success. They care about the guy next to them. They're playing for them. And that's why a guy like Donovan can take a step back and elevate Mobley and Garland within the offense, yet recognize when they need him to step up and take over for a spurt in a game or in a quarter or whatever. That's why he's leading the team in minutes per game at like barely over 30 or 31 or whatever it is. I should actually probably have double checked that, but it's way below what other stars in the league are doing. And Mobley and Garland are barely playing 30. Jarrett Allen's playing like 29, his fewest since coming to Cleveland. And none of them are complaining. None of them are worried about what's happening to their numbers based off of the amount that they're playing. They're just happy winning. They're happy playing together. And it's not just because they get along with each other. It's something that Atkinson has emphasized since taking over as the coach of this team. It's a culture that he's clearly instilled since walking in the building intentionally. A culture of joy. So our next award that we're going to do for this past week is remember that weird scene in Wedding Crashers when Vince Vaughn's character was tied up and given a nude painting from the brother of his new girlfriend award for we had a moment of the week. I'm sort of cheating on this one, and I'm going with a macro moment, and it's all centered around Evan Mobley. He wins Defensive Player of the Month. He goes on ESPN. He only shows up as the 10th highest vote getter on All-Star ballots, and then, and that's for front court players in particular. And then he follows that up with a massive performance against the Mavericks, scoring 34 points, grabbing 10 rebounds, 3 of 6 from 3. He has the best plus-minus on the team at an absolutely ridiculous plus 32. Just absolutely dominant. And all of this happened within the same 24-hour period. It makes me feel like it's the kind of boost that he needs to start getting that star-level treatment in the media, from just the general sports audience, the casuals, if you will. It might be a little bit old school mentality of me, but getting the chance to have just casual sports fans relate to you on a national spotlight, and then seeing your name on a new monthly award, and then seeing where he was in All-Star voting, and then seeing you dominate on the court, probably via the box score and hopefully some highlights, unless they happen to tune in on League Pass. But still, having it all happen at one time while this team is 30-4, that could be a catapult, to him and his image, a catalyst, in his young career, that at the very least, I wouldn't be shocked to see him snag a few more All-Star votes after this sequence of events in this really, really short period of time that kind of culminates into, like I said, a what I think could be a macro moment for him this past week. The next award we're going to do is the Move Over Whose Line Is It Anyway award for Laugh of the Week. Now, if you didn't see it or haven't seen the clip, go to Serena Winter's X profile and scroll down until you see a tweet that says legendary post-game interview. She's trying to interview Jarrett Allen after the monster game that he had against the Lakers, and instead she gets a sketch comedy routine. Darius Garland leading a group of Isaac Okoro and Tristan Thompson that crashed the interview. DG starts acting like some kind of host that's hyping up Jarrett Allen as an all-star, wishing the fans a happy new year. He and Okoro have this funny back and forth, almost seems like they rehearsed it, or probably not. But then he starts making fro pun nicknames for Jarrett Allen, and then they just, walk off like a little hype team. And Serena has to just continue a normal post-game interview where Jarrett Allen is all smiles. It's wholesome. It's joyful. It's funny. It's a little cringy. It's everything that you want to close out 2024 from your favorite, best team in basketball. And if the vibes aren't high enough from a moment like that, I needed another opportunity to celebrate this team behind the scenes. So that leads us to I might have to go to Google and look up the definition of this word just to make sure that I was using it correctly, award for Vibe of the Week. Kenny's speech video after winning Coach of the Month was posted on X or Twitter or whatever, on Thursday. He was named Eastern Conference Player of the Month, if you didn't see it, for the second month in a row. So as of now, he's swept the award in the Eastern Conference, 2 for 2, because October and November are combined into the same award. He's just the second coach to win that award in back-to-back months in Cavs history. Mike Brown did that back in 2009. And I just want to go through a few of the accolades that the NBA released when they announced this award that are they're insane. A 12-1 record, tied with Oklahoma City during the same span, but doesn't have the asterisks of, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas from the NBA Cup final. They had the best December winning percentage in franchise history. They were 7-0 at home, 5-0 against the Western Conference that's supposed to be far superior to the East. They had 11 of their 12 wins come by double digits, 4 of them by 20 plus, an 8-game winning streak to end the month, all of which were by double figures, which was only the second Cavs team to ever do that. And as we know, that continued in Dallas to match the previous record of 9 straight. They led the conference in points per game, threes per game, point differential, and were among the top teams in just about basically everything else. The award was deserving for Atkinson, but that's not why he's winning this one from me on this podcast for Vibe of the Week. The Cavs team social accounts shared this video out first, and it's the team finding out about Atkinson winning the award at practice, and Donovan Mitchell gathers everybody around in a circle of sorts and announced to the group that Kenny had won the award. And you see Kenny just jumping from the side into the middle, like jumping up and down. He's hugging Donovan Mitchell while everyone's cheering from him. They're yelling for him to give a speech, which he does with an all shucks mixed in there, and then crediting the guys on the team, the way that a back-to-back coach of the month would do. And you can just feel it through your tiny little phone screen as you're watching this, that he's just one of the guys. And you see that culture of joy that I talked about earlier that he's instilled in this team. They're doing something special right now. And I have just a little PSA to Cavs fans. Enjoy it as much as you can, because I don't have to tell you this, but I will anyways. It's not always like this. The vibes aren't always this high. But the vibes of this episode are going to stay this high because we've got more awards to do. And this one is the I could be dyeing my hair colors of different teams that I want to play for, sandbagging for you in games, demanding a trade, getting suspended, and searching for my joy in basketball by forcing my way out of another team. But I don't, because I'm a good leader. Award for Leader of the Week. And this award probably won't happen every week, but, because it would obviously get redundant. But I had to find a way to acknowledge what Donovan Mitchell did this week. He's been a great leader for this team all year. He's been willing to take a step back, as I mentioned earlier, in his role on the court. He's empowering the other guys. He advocates for them in interviews on social media. He's kind of the ultimate Cavs cheerleader, except he also happens to be the star of the team. And the example that he sets in that role is what I want to shout out here. Before the game in Dallas, he found 2 kids in the crowd wearing Cavs gear, and he invited them to sit courtside for the game. It turns out these kids have been Donovan Mitchell fans since they randomly saw him in a barber shop back in Utah like 7 years ago. So these kids who see a superstar when they're like 3 and 7 years old or something, they become a fan of that player. They show up to a game 7 years later, and that same superstar walks up, finds them in the crowd by happenstance, and surprises them with courtside seats. This is the guy that you want leading your team. This is the guy that you want Darius and Evan looking up to, learning from, so that when there's whatever kind of passing of the torch moment that's going to happen, and they're the ones that are leading the culture of the locker room, assuming, all goes according to plan, they would be thinking back on this and following this example. Oh, and by the way, Donovan Mitchell is still just 28 years old. It's not like he couldn't keep doing this for another 5 years or whatever, health and second apron willing. And I don't want us to lose sight of just how lucky we are that this is the guy that's leading our favorite ball club, because as we see around the league regularly in the NBA, this isn't the norm. This isn't what every fan base gets to rally behind. We're pretty lucky. So now we're going to do another award, and this one is the We Hate Basketball, so we just keep making shots from farther and farther away award for 3 of the week. And he's getting back-to-back awards. I'm going with Donovan Mitchell here from the Warriors game when he hit 3 threes in a row in the third quarter for his 1,500, 1,501, and 1,502 career three-point field goal makes. And that's good for 5th in the league since he was drafted. And these were also incredibly key during the game because it had been an absolute slog in the first half. They had sloppy play. There were a lot of turnovers on both sides of the ball from both teams. Both teams, both sides of the, you know what I mean. The Cavs were averaging 13 turnovers a game, and they had 11 in the first half against Golden State. Ty Jerome did give the Cavs a little bit of life before halftime, scoring 8 points in 8 minutes with a couple of threes. But then it was Mitchell who came out of the locker room and just broke the game wide open. He ended up with 5 threes in the third quarter. But those 3 consecutive ones to hit that 1,500 milestone and keep going, those threes, those ones were special. So now we're going to do the Half-Baked was a better movie than you think, so I'm saying this in my Dave Chappelle voice. Let me get them dimes award for Dime of the Week. And this one is a Darius Garland pass in Dallas. And if your immediate response to that was, which one? You're correct. But the exact one that I'm referring to came in the second quarter with about 90 seconds or so left in the half. Donovan Mitchell just rifles a pass across the court from the right wing to Garland near the left corner. The ball barely touches his hands before he somehow fires like a chest pass to Mobley in the lane for this thunderous dunk. And there's 3 things about this pass that were just honestly breathtaking. The speed of it. He couldn't have had his hands on the ball for a tenth of a second. It was like a tip pass, except it wasn't. And that's the second thing that was incredible about it. The velocity. He barely touched this ball, but he still got enough zip on it for it to travel to the other side of the lane. And the third thing is how crazy tight the window was that he got it through. It was next to non-existent. He was threading the needle so tight on this pass in traffic. It was just completely mind-blowing. And of course, Evan Mobley rewards him for finishing the playoff in style with a monster dunk. Any one of those 3 things would have made this pass impressive, but all of them together made it just absolutely incredible and worthy of Dime of the Week. So now our final award for the week is going to be the D is Absolutely Not Silent award for D of the Week. And I'm going to be quick with this. It's the fourth quarter exchange in that Mavericks game. The Cavs were trying to close things out, and the Mavs were just not going away. And during a Cavs run, Jarrett Allen blocked Derek Lively as he was coming down the lane, and he extends for a dunk in the center of the key straight on. Allen comes across the lane, blocks this shot from a weird angle to not foul, to actually get the ball, and to also keep the ball in play, like bouncing off of the bottom of the backboard. And then the Cavs come down to the other end and cap the play off with just this massive lob that Evan Mobley makes on the run to Jarrett Allen for this huge dunk that absolutely nobody was blocking. It put this exclamation point on this really miraculous, like, defensive play of the week, and all of it together was just chef's kiss, and exactly why we love Jarrett Allen. So that's all the awards that I have for you this week. I know it was kind of a lot of them, but there was a lot of cool stuff that happened, and I didn't want to have to always pick one thing over another, so I just kept coming up with new awards. If you want to nominate your own, you can use hashtag CavsCast on X or Bsky. Follow the show page at Ethos Cavs or myself at Zach-NBA. If you want to make like double sure that I see it, you can mention one of those two pages with the player and the award that you want to give away. You can make it silly, fun, and off the wall, or you can just nominate one of these things that I've been doing in the show. Some of these I hope you'll notice and ultimately appreciate as we go. Some of them will be staples, like we're gonna do a moment, like a game of the week and a Cav of the week. Like we're gonna do some of those things every week, but then some of these other ones we're gonna kind of like throw in, mix and match, and just have some fun with it. So hopefully it's enjoyable for you, because I sure as heck like it. It brings me a lot of joy. So the next thing that I wanted to get into is last week I had the privilege of going on the Block the Shot the Stop podcast during their live stream, and then it was released the next day as a podcast. Big shout out to them over there. They've been super supportive of this new show, way more than they have to be, and I appreciate them greatly. I also am planning another appearance here in about, I don't know, like probably about a week and a half from you listening to this right now. But I bring that up because when I was there, one of the topics that we touched on for a bit was the recent increase in three-point shooting that the Cavs have had, and I thought that I would just dig a little bit deeper into that for you here today. For context, through the first 2 months or so of the season, they were averaging about 38 three-point attempts a game. Since the middle of December, and I went smack dab in the middle, December 15th is where I cut this thing off, they have played 8 games, and their three-point attempts are up to 45 and a half, almost 46 a game. Those 8 games, the Nets, they shot 47 of them. The Bucks, 47. The Sixers, 43. The Jazz, 46. The Nuggets, 48. The Warriors, 47. The Lakers, 46. And the Mavs, 40, which obviously pulled the average down a little bit. They won all 8 of those games, so the results might make the answer kind of obvious, but I wanted to dig in to determine if this is what we should want them to be doing. Is it too many threes? Are they falling into the trap that this general narrative around the NBA suggests, that all of these teams are just playing the same and all they're doing is hunting threes and all of that discourse that's going on? I wanted to explore that a little bit and just, I guess, share, here's the way that I look at this. I do believe that the Cavs shooting more threes is a good thing, as long as 3 things remain true. The first is that it doesn't come at the expense of their process. What has made them the best offense in basketball for much of the year is how they play, which I realize is not revolutionary analysis. But what I mean is the pace, the movement, both the movement of the ball and also the movement of the players off the ball and the pressure that they put on the rim. They are still fourth in the league in drives per game. They just dropped to second in assists off of those drives to Memphis by 1/10 of an assist per game. This drive and kick, drive and dump style of play that they use is what leads to the open looks that they've been getting. That's what allows them to shoot the highest percentages in the NBA. They're still first in field goal percentage, in three-point percentage, in effective field goal percentage, in true shooting percentage. I would not want to see them go away from what has made them the best offensive rating team all year long just for the sake of shooting more threes. And so the second thing is, building on that what I don't want them to do is hit a point of diminishing returns. In that earlier part of the season that I referenced, they were middle of the pack in three-point attempts. They had climbed to 11th as of mid-December. And they were shooting it at a league's best 39.9%. Over the last 8 games, they're up to third in the league in three-point attempts. They're still leading the league in accuracy. And what's more than that, their percentage has gone up from a shade under 40% that I mentioned to a ridiculous 42.6%. So they're shooting more threes, and yet they're getting even more accurate with those threes. That's not, always the case. In statistics and in basketball, you increase the volume of something, and oftentimes the efficiency comes down. If you think about that from a basketball context, think about guys that you've seen shoot 40% from three one year on 3 attempts per game, and so the next year, or the second half of a season, or whatever sample size you're looking at, they increase their attempts to 5 per game. But then they start shooting 35%. They're not a worse shooter. They've just increased their volume, which can mean changing the type of threes that they take in order to take more. Rather than perhaps only shooting when they're wide open, maybe they take more of those threes that are a little bit more contested, or when they're used to just getting catch and shoot threes and they start firing off the move more often. It's the same concept for an entire team. To increase the number of threes that they take, it can mean changing the types of threes that they take. Maybe instead of making a read that would normally lead to a dump-off pass to Jarrett Allen at the rim, Evan Mobley is instead forcing a kick out to a corner because they want to shoot more threes, and that corner three might actually be more contested. Or maybe there's a pick and roll up top that might normally end a play with a lob at the rim, and the guard stops and pops at the three-point line instead. These are just hypothetical, scenarios to illustrate the point is that to shoot more threes, sometimes the quality of those threes starts to go down, and so does the percentage. So at some point, the more you do it, the more the percentages can drop, the more the analytics no longer support shooting more threes, diminishing returns. And that has not happened for this team, obviously, because they're shooting a league's best percentage, and it's only getting better the more that they shoot. And so the analytics are still far in their favor, and therefore, so am I. But it's that concept that leads me to the third thing, which is that they have to have something else to go to when they're missing those threes. See, the idea behind analytics is just very simple at face value. You take the most efficient shot. And with the way that guys are able to shoot nowadays, if you can shoot 35+% from 3 and 40% from long 2, take a step or two back and get an extra point. But if you're passing up high percentage looks, like those that happen at the rim, or your 3-point percentage starts dropping, into the, whatever, like into the 20s or something, like it's no longer a better shot, right? The math is no longer, the math is no longer in your favor. And I think that's the problem that we've seen some teams have. That's been a lot of the fuel to this like too many threes debate happening in the NBA right now. When a team is ice cold from three and yet they just keep chucking, not only is that bad analytics, it's also just bad, unfun basketball to watch. I don't want to see the Cavs go 10 of 50 from three. They're too talented and they have way too many weapons to do that, for that to be the only move that they leverage from their bag. And they've proven earlier in the season, when they were only a mid-pack 3-point attempt team, and still the top offense in the league. And I think that they proved against Dallas that they're not becoming overly reliant on the three ball. When they weren't shooting them, at the level of efficiency, they were only at like 37% in that game. So they only took 40 of them. And I say only, but when we're talking about a stretch of 8 games, when they're shooting more like 46 a game, that's a pretty significant cut. It's like, if it's not falling, they didn't just keep firing. They adjusted and they focused on getting more looks in the paint. And that's exactly what they should do when the three ball isn't falling at its normal clip. So, that's my long-winded way of saying that I do believe that this is good for them. And I personally want them shooting as many threes as possible, as long as the math is still mathing and it doesn't start taking away from what has made them great. Now, before we go rapid fire for a minute here, I want to remind you that this is a brand new show and we need your help to grow it. So if you could please, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And if you are listening on a podcast player, please hit the follow button in that app right now. I would greatly be in your debt, which I'll repay now by saying thank you. Did you do it? Thank you. See? Now we're even. All right, so I've got 3 things for you in the rapid fire section. I wouldn't call these super spicy takes, but I did find them interesting and therefore wanted to share them on today's show. The first one is, despite the early fan voting, the Cavs will have 3 All-Stars. If Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Evan Mobley are not all suiting up for the All-Star game in Chase Center, more than just the game is broken. None of them are playing anywhere near the amount of minutes as other stars in the league because the team is winning and blowing people out at a rate that is reserved for some of the best teams in history. Per 36 minutes, all 3 of these guys are scoring over 22 points a game. Garland is a fraction of a hair off of 50, 40, 90 shooting. Mitchell was 6th in the last Tim Bontemps MVP straw poll. And Evan Mobley is playing like one of the best two-way players in the entire league. And by the way, is shooting over 43% from 3 now. They check all the boxes to be an all-star and then some. And yet, the first fan vote had Mitchell as the only lock. Mobley barely cracked the top 10 for the front court, and Darius Garland was non-existent. PSA to casual fans. Watch some Cavs games. These guys are the real deal. The second one that I've got for you is I went back to 1996 as far as NBA.com stats would take clutch data. And I found 3 teams that have had a clutch winning percentage of 80% or better. The 2015-16 Warriors had an 88.2% winning percentage in the clutch. That team finished 73-9 with the best record in NBA history and got upset in the finals by your Cleveland Cavaliers. The 2012-13 Heat had an 80% winning percentage in the clutch. That team won 66 games and won a championship to cap off back-to-back titles and LeBron MVPs. And in 2006-07, the Dallas Mavericks had an 84.2% winning percentage in the clutch. That team won 67 games and were upset in the first round by the Warriors in 6 games. This Cavs team's winning percentage in the clutch right now is 85.7%. Second best on this list. And they're on pace to win 72 games. And they're oddly connected to all 3 of these franchises in some form or fashion. But the big question on all of our minds is whether this is headed for a banner like the Heat, a finals run like the Warriors, or will it fall short like Dallas? I know what I'm hoping for. The final rapid-fire thought here that I have for you is a new trade target idea. This is not a report or a rumor or anything that I've seen, but a name that I think would be kind of perfect for the Cleveland Cavaliers is Torrey Craig. He's got size at 6'7", 220, and is a versatile player. He plays the 3 through 5 positions. 2K even lists this guy as a center, and that obviously doesn't mean much officially, but I think it does speak to in a general sense, of how he's been used as a small ball big before. You know, he's kind of buried on the Chicago Bulls bench. He's only played in 9 games for 12 minutes a night behind guys like Patrick Williams and Talen Horton-Tucker and even Zach LaVine, Jalen Smith. But then he could still be blocking some minutes at times for some of their younger guys like Buzelis and Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry. And they weirdly have a lot of guys that are lobbying for minutes on the wing or in these small ball lineups. Most of them are young. And then you've got this 34-year-old guy just hanging around waiting to be plucked by a contender. For the Cavs, he could easily fit in as a Dean Wade insurance policy, or also, play alongside him if needed. He's a good shooter at a 40% three-point clip. And most importantly, he's on the final year of a minimum contract. So if you could grab him for a second rounder or whatever with a minimum deal you're comfortable moving, it could be a great depth piece that you don't have to rely on regularly, but could be relied on when you need him. And just another solid option to go to against teams with size on the perimeter, which I know some Cavs fans are tired of hearing about, but if there's one thing that they can improve on this team that's already the best in the league, it's that. All right, up next, this week, the Cavs are getting some home cooking. Finally, it seems, with 4 games between Sunday and Sunday. The Hornets game will have happened by the time you hear this episode, and we're going to chat about that one in next week's recap. Wednesday, the Thunder come to town in the first of 2 against the top team in the West, and that one has been flexed into the national TV slot. This one will be on ESPN. Thursday, in a back-to-back, they'll then have the Raptors. And then they'll get a few days off before the front half of a home-and-home series with the Pacers on Sunday. Of these games, I don't think that I'm going out on much of a limb here to say that the most dangerous one on the schedule is the Thunder game. When you have the best team in the other conference on the schedule, it's obviously the biggest game and worth talking about. So, what was interesting as I was thinking about the Thunder is just how many similarities there are on paper between these two teams. When they're healthy, they both have kind of that like two big, I don't want to call it twin tower, but it's adjacent to it type of a lineup with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein on one side and Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen on the other, obviously. Chet and Mobley could be like two of the three best bigs in basketball for the next decade. Both are making a massive impact on the defensive end, and they're both growing on offense. Again, that's when healthy, because Chet is still out. He had that hip fracture back in November. Although he was recently spotted without crutches, he's not playing. But the two teams' records are also similar. The Cavs are 30-4 as of recording this, and the Thunder are 29-5. They both went 12-1 in December. The Cavs have the best offense in the NBA, and the Thunder the best defense, and they're 1-2 in net rating. They both have these young cores that they are building around. The overall average ages are 27 for the Cavs and 24-ish for the Thunder. But when you consider that the Cavs have like three guys in Tristan Thompson, Karis LeVert, and George Niang who are 30 and older, the average age of the core four is actually only 25. For the Thunder, Caruso and Kenrich Williams are only 30 years old, and they're the oldest guys on the roster. They're comparable for them of like SGA, J-Dub, Chet, and Hartenstein average out to 24. This is, I mean, I don't know, probably a silly exercise to be doing, but I guess all I'm trying to do is illustrate that the cores of these teams are actually quite similar in both age and construction, and they could be potentially playing at the respective tops of each one of their conferences for like a really long time to come. They might not play each other a ton over that stretch, but when they do, they could be not only like big matchups and big tests, they could also kind of be a little bit Spider-Man meme-y a little bit. And this game is going to be a massive measuring stick for both teams. But I think to the part of the conversation for the Cavs, where I know there is a lot of frustration amongst this fan base about how they are viewed by like the national media and just the general discourse online around the NBA by non-Cavs fans about this is just a regular season team and they have to prove it in the playoffs. And, in some cases even, they don't play anybody. They're just in the East. The West is way better, despite them being undefeated against the West already. But assuming everybody plays on both sides, with the exception of Chet, because that's just off the table, the Cavs beat this Thunder team. It's going to be really hard for some of those narratives that have been pushed so far this season to not start coming around a little bit. You're going to have to be pretty committed to the bit if you're still not believing in this Cavs team if they take down this Thunder squad. It'll happen, but I think amongst those that we would consider to be the actual analysts and not hot take artists, I think we could see a shift. You get that W. Now, as far as like notable storylines outside of that ramble I just had, the Isaac Okoro injury, the latest that I have seen as of recording this was on the 2nd, which was Thursday. He had reached his reevaluation date and was seen in practice clothes in some of those videos, but he was not playing against Dallas. And I've not seen another update since then, like I said, as of recording this. With how well they're playing and how deep they are at that 2-3 position, I wouldn't be shocked if we actually don't even see him this week. But I also say that, and he could literally play in the Hornets game that happened last night as of the point that you're listening to this and make me look silly. But that's just a quick update on that one. If you made it to the end, please please leave a like if you're watching on YouTube, and rate the show 5 stars if you're listening in a podcast app. It would go a long way to show these evil algorithms that this show is worthy of being shown to people. Next time that you hear from me, I'll be chatting with Tony Pesta from Fear the Sword and the Junkyard Pod about the Evan Mobley leap, and that will be posted on Thursday. And now that the episode is over, go ahead and open your app store and download the Sports Ethos app for one of the best blurb feeds in the business. You got Cavs players, fantasy tools, updates. It's all there for you, and it's pretty awesome. So go ahead and download that. As always, I'm Zach, and thanks for nerding out, Cavs fans.